Hello and welcome to part one of The Idiot's Guide to How to Make Your Own Guitar. Now, you can get instructions on how to make a really fancy electric guitar for only maybe $700 or $800 in raw materials, or how to use scrap wood to make a box guitar. So I can't afford the one and I want something a little nicer than the other, so you split the difference here. So if you care to join me, we can make our own little music maker here on the cheap. Now, first step, of course, is research. Decide what kind of instrument you want. Find as many different examples of that as you can, and mix and match the features that you like. And then draw several plans. I use 3 inches to the foot, or 1/4 scale. And I make several on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. And then I combine the features that I like to get the guitar that suits me best, or at least that I thought would look reasonably good. I picked up a humbucker. I've got some leftover guitar tuners. I can use the hardware to make measurements, see how much room I need to allow for various items. And then got a piece of heavy cardboard. I'm going to be drawing the instrument full-sized. Now, once the instrument is drawn out full-sized, then you can cut out the various parts and use it as patterns for when you start laying out pieces of wood. So, your first step, pattern making, is do your research, plan your guitar, make sure you got room for all the hardware that you're going to be putting on it, and then draw your pattern full-sized, and then we'll be ready to start cutting wood. Well, I'm back to the second day. I've cut a half plan form of the body, and then I doubled that as I traced it, and ended up with a reasonably symmetrical front pattern. And then I copy that again, and I'm going to be building the body on top of this guide here. This will be for cutting out the patterns. Oh, here's the pattern for the neck. The peg head here, 1/4 inch thick. It's going to be an extra 1/4 inch when I put the face on it, so that'll be a 1/2 inch thick. And the tail here goes all the way through to the tailpiece. And this is going to be a very strong, and it's going to be aligned. So everything's going to line up properly because it can't not line up. And then on the face here, I cut 3/8 inch away from the edge, drew a line in, and I'm going to cut that out in short sections. And those are going to be the patterns I use, and I'm going to lay those on 3/4 inch board stock, and I'm going to cut out the sides. So this is going to be a pretty thick, heavy, and very strong guitar, although not as heavy as what the professionals make. Man, those are heavy. So once I get the patterns all cut out, then I can start laying out my wood and getting ready to cut. Went to Home Depot, got my cheap wood. I got 3.5 inch by 3/4 inch birch, and I got some 3.5 by 4 foot by 1/4 inch poplar. This is the darkest poplar I could get. The darker poplar is harder, so I wanted that. But you can get some that's actually purple. I mean, almost black. That stuff is gorgeous. I wanted some, but they didn't have any. So, cardboard pattern. You remember that? I took that. I laid out my first piece. I don't need this anymore. This is my master. With this, I draw the outline for all the pieces I'm going to cut for the neck, and then cut them all to match this first piece that I built. And then everything should go together just peachy keen. Hopefully. At least it should all be identical close enough. So I got my first piece of wood cut to the neck. I use that as a pattern to mark out the rest of the pieces I need. And then before I laminate everything together, there is one last job, and that is the truss rod. Now, there are two types of truss rod. There's the adjustable truss rod, where you go in through the end, or maybe through the base of the neck, and then tighten or loosen it to adjust the neck. Or there is the non-adjustable truss rod, which is basically just a piece of square tubing. So I went out and I bought a piece of square tubing, cut and polished and shaped a notch for it. It's 1/2 inch, which means I need 2 pieces of 1/4 inch wood to make up the width of it. And once everything's glued together and laminated properly, then I just epoxy this into the slot that's formed. Maybe a little bit on each side. Boink, whatever. Imagine that that's all finished wood. And that'll take the tension of the steel strings. So, finish cutting and start laminating. I'll be adding some more later. I want a little more wood on the peg head, make it a little wider, and I'd like to have the base of the neck a little wider down by the body. So I'll be putting some extra wood on just where I want it later. But for now, this is the main core of the neck. I'll get this glued up. And it'll be ready. Let it dry overnight. Use a little masking tape here to tape the pieces together, and that will help hold the alignment while you're clamping everything. A little bit on the ends. The best thing to use is, of course, the conventional woodworking clamps. Just put 6 or so along the length. Once everything's lined up the way you want it to be. Failing that, you could just lay it out like I'm going to do and put some heavy weights on it until it's heavy enough to squeeze the glue out. Is that lined up? That's lined up. That's smooth. The ends are lined up. Close enough. We're ready. Okay. Okay, that's pressing the glue out, so it's going to work pretty well. We'll be ready to work on it some more in the morning.